Howdy. So this week we've been hearing about the idea of God being the shepherd, the one who is caring for us, the one who's leading us. And while we oftentimes will go to the passage of Psalm 23, oftentimes we miss out on both sides of what it means to be in Psalm 23. Psalm 23 looks at both sides of what it is for God to be shepherding us, not just by taking us to places that are blessed, but also leading us through the valley of the shadow of death. So, what I wanted to point out is that with this aspect, what we see is that, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, this is not, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, because I have left you. This is still in the keeping of the Lord is my shepherd. See, oftentimes when we think of the very beginning of this particular psalm, I remember that when I was first hearing about it, there were some misunderstandings from some people who were preaching on it when they looked at the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. See, instead of realizing that I shall not want being I shall not be in want, I shall not be lacking of anything, instead the people that were preaching on it were saying, I shall not want God, the Lord, who is my shepherd. And oftentimes we think that the only times that we're going to be going through times of darkness, times where we struggle, are going to be whenever we are rejecting God, whenever we're walking away. So anytime that something difficult, bad, or otherwise, you know, terrible in some way happens, we automatically start to think, what did I do wrong? What is it that I've done that God is punishing me for? Now, the thing is that there are times whenever we have done things that are wrong and we have to suffer the consequences of it. There are times whenever we end up not caring for or watching over or guiding our families, and we end up seeing the trouble that they will get into over time. We end up seeing how if we're not taking care of our financial well-being, that we can end up going into times of bankruptcy or not being able to care for our family's needs. Or even other times whenever we end up allowing our minds to be filled with things that are distracting us from God or taking us away from what is good and lovely, we end up finding ourselves in depression or destroying our families or our friendships. The thing is that there are times whenever we do walk away from God. But also, there are times whenever we are just in the middle of terrible times. We are currently facing, hurricanes. And Hurricane Laura is, bearing down on us. And the thing is that while we are, taking care of what we need to take care of, and we're prepping and we're putting things together in our homes and making sure that our windows are cared for and stuff comes off the porch, do we have enough food? Do we have enough water? All of these things, despite all of that, we're still going to hear these messages coming up over and over again. And so it's going to be very easy that as this storm comes through, we're going to be asking a lot of questions of what did we do wrong? And there are some things that, of course, we should be doing differently. We should be more prepared within our communities. We should have better construction on our buildings. We should have less cement and concrete all over our neighborhoods that are stopping, water from being able to get back into the water table. Yes, there are those things. But we're also going to be at risk of attacking one another. You're misleading us. No, you're misleading us. No, you're doing the wrong thing. And the truth is that the God being our shepherd is that oftentimes we do find ourselves in dark times. But that's not because we are no longer doing what it is that God is desiring us to do. What we have to continue to do is to keep seeking the Lord, not to say, Dear God, how is it that I should follow you so I am not in the middle of the valley of the shadow of death? But rather by sometimes saying, God, I know that I'm going to be in the valley of the shadow of death. I know that this is going to be hard. So I'm asking you, God, to guide my heart, to guide my mind, and to help me to be the person who witnesses to you in the midst of it, not trying to avoid it. So as we're facing yet another thing that 2020 has to throw at us, the question to you is not how can we escape this, but rather how can we be confident in God's grace through this.